So, hello everybody, and a very warm welcome from my side to everybody joining here in the audience and virtually. My name is Kiri Trier. I'm leading the sustainability portfolio at Capgemini and Vent, and it's nice that you're all here. Before I will introduce you to our panelists, let me state the context of this sustainability roundtable a little bit. Last week, the G7 climate, energy and environmental ministers met and published 84 statements how to tackle this climate challenge. And actually, it was quite clear they will only do this together. So I'm very curious to hear the opinions of our panelists in terms of sustainability in the industry 4.0. And therefore, I would like to introduce, first of all, virtually, maybe you see her, Professor Dr. Gisela Lanzer. She is the member of the Institute Management of the WBK Institute for Production Engineering at the Karlsruhe Institute of Technology, and her research and work areas are global production strategies, production system planning, and quality assurance. Thank you for having you. Next to me, I see Gunther Beitinger. He is Vice President Manufacturing at Siemens Digital Factory. He started a very long time ago at Siemens, right? 1999. And you held various responsibilities already. And you also a responsibility in your role, like I see, for 34 plans of the division Digital Industry to develop and define the digital transformation roadmap, right?
Yeah, thank you.
And on the right corner, we see Gabriele Maurer. Gabriele Maurer is Head of Sustainability and Performance Management at the Jungheinrich AG. And she stated, I joined the Sustainability Department at Jungheinrich to make a contribution to climate protection. Thanks for having you. Next to her, Matthias Kaldenhoff. Matthias Kaldenhoff, he is Head of Business Development, Platform Solutions and Partner Innovation Management at the office of the CTO at SAP, sorry. And you bring a lot of experience to this panel with over 2 decades of business technology experience, right? And then, last but definitely not least, Jennifer Wertwein, the Key Account Business Development Manager at Google. She's leading the sustainability program of Google Cloud Europe, supporting selected customers to reimagine their business in a more sustainable and digital way. So, happy warm welcome to everybody. So, Mr. Beitinger. As a Vice President Manufacturer in Siemens Technology Factories and being with the company for more than 20 years, right? You have initiated, you have told me, a new guild called Istenium. Maybe can you elaborate for the audience a little bit on that? What does this mean? What are you providing with the guild?
Yesterday we had also the official launch of the Estonian Association, and Gabriele just lined it out. I don't know who was here before, but she made a perfect job to explain what we try to achieve in the association. So as you have seen, we are dealing in the supply chains with a high complexity and with decentralized supply chain structures. Is it not? Hello? Yeah. Okay, and the Estonian Association tries to tackle the challenge of the decarbonization of the industrial supply chain in a holistic aspect. First of all, the Estonian Association would like to provide the technological foundation for sharing the information, so sharing the product carbon footprint information along, and also beside of this, that we are providing the technical foundation to share the information along the complete supply chains. We are also would like to converge and agree on a data structure for exchange the information. And of course, we would like to bring in also the things into the picture, because we will not win the race of net zero if we are not also bringing the services for the carbon removal also into the game. But let me first line out the first aspect, the technical foundation. We provide an open and cross-industry global ecosystem where we are sharing the information based on data sovereignty, decentralized trust, and also by an exchange which is provided by a peer-to-peer exchange, but the information is verified via verifiable credential. So it's not a platform by itself where you load up the information. So it's better like this.
Maybe it is.
Maybe it's my voice. No. Maybe it only works with your voice. Okay. So thank you for asking again. The Estonian Association, we just announced the foundation yesterday, is providing three aspects: the technical foundation, the standardization on the exchange standard. So because we have no universal standard in regards of product carbon footprint accounting, as Gabriel also was lining out, and also we are bringing the things into the network, and also as carbon removal services are not comparable and not transparent at the moment. But first, to the first aspect, the Estonian Association is providing and also using the sharing technology, how the information is shared across a decentralized network, as we believe that information must be openly shared, that everyone who shares the information has to keep the data sovereignty, and also you have to choose with whom to share and what to share. And so we are providing a technology which is based and giving the libraries, the tools, and also reusable components for digital identities, and in a global ecosystem. So having now the technology set up for sharing the mechanisms, of course, we have to provide a universal standard for product carbon footprint accounting, because there is no one. So this leads to huge deviations in aggregation of product carbon footprints. And this calls for action in regards of interoperability. You cannot aggregate horsepower with kilowatt, let's say. You need to have a kind of an agreement how to aggregate the product carbon footprints, and also based on primary data, that you are really addressing sustainable actions and not based on average data. So this is why we are going to share real data. And the last point, like I said, the Estonian Association also address the carbon removal services, as there is also no transparency and no comparability, and this is so we have to bring them into multidimensional grid to lay out the foundation also for such services and to monitorize them. And the Estonian Association started with 15 founding members, which are globally already presented. So we have a company from Japan, we have a university from Australia, we have a Switzerland company in it, we have German companies in it, Merck, for example, NTT Data, TÜV Süd, and we have Weidmüller and the universities of Australia, of Erlangen, and also startup companies who are sharing one vision, because we would really like to decarbonize the industrial supply chain in a sustainable way, and everybody should be able to join. It's an open network, and it's cross-industry. It should not be dominated by any industry aspect. And of course, it must be global. Otherwise, it's not possible that we are having our supply chains completely, because at the end we are meeting at the raw material providers.
Perfect, thank you. This sounds very, very interesting. And I was wondering if the Jung Heinrich Group can be a potential partner in this association as well.
Yeah, of course, any here, as Google, SAP, and Jungheinrich would be perfect partners. We would love to welcome them in the association, as we have anyway to agree on a sharing technology. I mean, we really believe that there will be different ecosystems, but we have to make sure that these ecosystems are connected. So otherwise we will not be able to decarbonize the supply chain completely. Otherwise we will end up, because we have ecosystem borders. So we have to agree on a sharing technology. We have to agree on data structure, as we are trying to do with the digital product passport. And the product carbon footprint information is one part of it, as we are working together with SAP also in the WBCSD and Catena X. And of course, we have to agree on the processes. How do we agree? So, yeah, absolutely.
So maybe, Gabriele, maybe we can deep dive a little bit one more time into your project, because you've experienced a lot during the last corporate carbon footprinting, and maybe you can take away something in terms of the key challenges, and hopefully they cover your solution as well.
Yeah, thank you. As I mentioned before, we had a big problem. The Libros doesn't work. Okay, thank you. As mentioned before, we had a big problem to find a software solution which supports us to collecting our data. As Gunther mentioned already, we had a big approach for the collection of data, because we don't want to have only scope 1 and 2 emissions informations, also scope 3. And this, I think, was a point when you mentioned that there's no standard to collect the data. The greenhouse gas protocol is a nice standard which data are available, or which data are in a company general available for the carbon footprint. But there's no standard that you have to collect them, or that you have to announce your carbon footprint, for example, in transportation or something like that. And so that's the problem, that you can't compare a carbon footprint from company A to company B. For us, it was a big achievement that we had to collect every data from every scope. That's why we had so much data points in the scope 3 category with 18 subcategories. And therefore we had to ask every single point of contact. We had to make a huge Excel sheet to collect the data. And of course, we also validate the data by single point and cross-check every function. And that was a huge effort in time, you know about it, and capacity of our project team. So it would be really nice to have here a supporting solution.
So maybe, Mr. Kaltenhoff, we can hear a little bit more about
I think your micro is working
in this field. So how do you tackle that? And in terms of also the question, the one-size-fits-all solution, which we don't see.
Okay. At first, we have to mention that SAP is not covering this 360 view on the whole market. Nobody is possible to do so. So we concentrate, let's say, on how to make sustainable actions economic, and what's the positive impact on any action you are doing in a sustainable way for your business. That's one of the most things, because as you see, I guess for everybody it's perfect when I'm saying that up to 95% of all business actions will terminate in an ERP system. So will terminate, let's say, in accounting of your action, in forecast management, in order management, in production management, in sales, in marketing. So I think that our system can be used as factor for measurement of your action. And so we divided this into 3 parts. The very first is we have a problem that's called zero waste. So what is about recycling, what is about waste management, and what is about material management. Then we do have a program that's called zero emissions. And this zero emissions is all about product design, all about product management. And we strengthen day by day our capabilities to put all these actions into accountable measurements. I guess you were talking about how to compare kilowatt to. So what we have as vision is that at least in short time we will have environment profit and loss accounting, so that you can see when I will use this is the impact of that, or if I will exchange, so that will happen. The next thing, and that's I guess absolutely clear, we will help all the companies to report. Because the first goal they have now in EU taxonomy, in ESG, whatever you like, is to report things from their system now. Where is the data? What they are using? Which legal requirements do they have? I know palm oil, for instance. What is the legal requirement to import palm oil now? And how to use it in your production line? So the very first thing we are offering people is that they have their business reported in a sustainable way. In accounting, we call that sustainable finance. Okay, then we will expand this to an advisory system which will make the most impact to your action. This is an advisory system, and this is structured by these three things and added. And that's always missed in, from my side, in any sustainable discussion. We are also talking about people. Because sustainability is not only material, it's not only CO2 or carbon or whatever you like, it's all about people. When we are looking at the ESG, there is called a thing social governance. So we are talking about working safety, we are talking about environment, health in any kind. And this is the next, and then we have a round trip. What we found out is that, especially in business, people who want to work in the company will have a closer look about their sustainable brand now. And so when you are talking about war of talent, this is also a question of brand you're positioning into the market. So I guess at first, having reports, having advice, and having accounting, and having a clear view on your impact of your action. That's what SAP is delivering.
Okay, cool. Thanks for that. Yeah, of course.
Maybe for the auditorium, I think I would like to learn out that what Matthias just described as a challenge. When you design a product, normally, of course, you're starting your challenge of designing a sustainable product by digging into so-called life cycle assessment data, and you make averages regards of the product carbon footprint impact of your product. That's good for a start, but in the moment when the product is in production, averages are not anymore working, because then you are exchanging average data with the real data by the decisions you are taking of the providers, of the material, and also the details. And here is that what we see. I mean, just an estimation, Gabriele said, to estimate a carbon footprint just of one type, we estimate costs to 20 to 30,000 euro of people, of time of the people. No? And when you would like to keep this dynamically, you have to invest really a lot of resources to make this efficient. There we are setting on, this is the sea green product which we put on the Estanium network as the first product, where we are able to request data from the suppliers, so from tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. So as you have the bill of material in your management system, you know the suppliers, and then you can ask for real data, for primary data, which is viable to take really actions and sustainable actions. Otherwise, you're working with averages. And if you would like to make an impact, you need primary data. And when you are sharing, and if you like to get this data, now all the challenges coming across. How do you get the data? Can you trust the data? Do you put everything in a central database and you have always the situation the winner takes it all? Or you trust on a decentralized trust system where everybody keeps data sovereignty and is able to share the data with whom to share with. And this is what we are thinking is the requirement to have the settings for a decarbonization of the complete supply chain. Otherwise, competitiveness maybe is also questionable in this aspect. Just to line out a little bit the challenge what we are tackle with our Estanium Association and with the setup product on it.
And I guess science takes also a significant role in this game. So I was wondering, Professor Lanza, can you hear us?
Yes, I hear you very good. And I could listen to your really interesting discussion. What we hear at the moment is the urgent problem that we have to assess and report for example, the CO2 footprint. And I'm not totally, or on the other hand, I would be satisfied with average data if everybody takes the same average data. And that's what Mrs. Mauro mentioned, we need a standard. I compare it sometimes with the finance guy, with the auditor. All this consultancy you need to have your finance, your international financial reporting standard. Such kinds like a IFRS we need to calculate, to assess our consumption. I think that's now the urgent part, but you asked me for research, and to have a really decoupling of research consumption and our, let's say, well-being and our business, we have to go a step further, and therefore we have to go towards circular economy. We heard a little bit from the colleague from recycling, but I mean much more. And Mr. Baldinger just mentioned you need the real primary data to do decision. What kind of decision could that be? I mean, if you really want to bring back your products from a linear production, you produce that, you make that, you sell that, and forget that. But if you want them to bring back to do a remanufacturing, a repair, remanufacturing, and even recycling, you exactly should know what was in the former life of that product. So therefore, I think our big step will be that we change our business models from a linear make, sell, forget, or fire and forget model towards really a circular economy with all the steps.
Perfect, thank you. So I was wondering, Jennifer, as part of the Google company, what role takes Google in terms of circularity, in terms of Industry 4.0, in terms of the whole transformation of the industry?
So first of all, I want to take a step back, and I want to say we and myself as well, we fully agree with every topics that were mentioned here, every angles that were tackled. And now coming to your question, Kiri, Google sees its responsibility in different dimensions. Of course, the first dimension is that we need to care about our own operations. We need to green them. We're very proud to be one of the thought leaders in sustainability. We call ourselves the greenest cloud in the market when it comes to our green IT stack, and we constantly try to push boundaries forward here, innovate, for example, a time-based measurement of emissions when it comes to our energy consumption, and many other aspects where we are trying to lead the way in terms of circularity, water replenishment. So this is the one side, the first layer. But of course, we've heard that not a single firm can solve the climate crisis by themselves, right? So we understood very early on that we need to partner first to achieve our own ambitions, but then also to support customers in a partnership constellation, so use best technology. And why we say we play a significant role in the transformation of the economy is because Google understands itself as a data company. we are the ones who are trying to organize the world information, and sustainability in its core is a data challenge. We've heard, for example, that we need to have standards. We also hear in the market that firms have troubles organizing their internal data, but then also when we look at the whole value chain, for example, in the supply chain, how can we measure scope 3 emission? How can we measure commit to the Supply Chain Act in Germany, to Lieferkettengesetz, to ensure human rights standards? So understanding which data is necessary in the supply chain, to organize it, to analyze it, to make it accessible. Then in the whole organization of the firm, how can we optimize? We are very proud to partner here with SAP in many ways to organize information there. And then the final step, we talked about business models. I think fundamentally we need to understand also the customer and not only make it transparent, but also to showcase, okay, why company A that really cares about the environment and tries to get the right information, really takes thought leadership one step forward. Why a customer should purchase this product than product from company B that doesn't really care about it. So these are points where we understand that we want to be there as a partner in this transformation of the economy that is happening.
That this is a lot about transparency in the end. And now, as you've already mentioned, like the Jung Heinrich Group has the challenge of the supply chain law as well. So what can Google provide here? Do you create different transparency, or how does this work?
Exactly. Great question, and I think there's not like one single answer to it, right? In terms of the Supply Chain Act, which we as a company and myself, we're happy that actually regulation takes stance and says, okay, actually what globally is a common sense, namely to commit to human rights, is now legally or gets legally binding, and therefore with regulation, industry shifts, innovation happens, technology emerges, and data becomes also more accessible, or firms work towards that. So our role is really to bring all that information together, all the data, to organize it, to structure it, to make it accessible. That's the one hand. We do also, just recently made our global Earth engine, the Google Earth engine, commercially available. So we see a lot of adoption from firms here, because they not only want to, like from the ESG side, understand the social aspects, but also the environmental aspect. So where does climate change happen? We are cooperating with a company, for example, that wanted to understand palm oil deforestation for palm oil sourcing. And with the Earth engine, that is over, I think, almost 40 years, images around the world, we could help them to understand where deforestation happens and where they need to take a closer look at their supplier act to commit to that. So tools, data, information like that to make it accessible, that's where Google stands in. And then I mentioned the final piece, to get it to the customer is also a piece that we play a role, where we see a big responsibility we have there.
As the customer sits next to us, Gabriele, I was wondering whether you have worked with Google on such projects, as I know you're not only responsible for the corporate carbon footprinting, but also for topics like EU taxonomy rollout and other sustainability initiatives. So maybe you can elaborate a little bit on how do you see this partner play working, and I mean more from a ground zero standpoint.
Yeah, thanks. I listen very carefully because a lot of topics influence my work. As Kira mentioned, the carbon footprint is only one, or climate management is only one initiative out of 6 of our sustainability strategy. And we also mentioned the circular economy or something like governance, which is for the EU taxonomy relevant. So we don't only need the data of carbon footprinting in our supply chain, also of the human beings in the supply chain to involve them. And when I have the choice, I like to have a slice of every cake you provide here. For the Google, for example, the information about the supplier deep down there, because we only have a contact to our first or second, maybe third supplier in our TRO. And we need to have more information because we don't know where the big lever is to change something here. For example, the Stadium Association would be perfect to have a platform to go in interaction with other companies, because a lot of requirements are coming to the market right now or will become in the next years, and we see a big uncertainty of the companies how they can deal with them. For example, the EU taxonomy was a good example because it stressed us out last year, and the EU taxonomy was a clear announcement from the regulatory to give your green impact in your finance data. But also there was a big discussion which areas of a company can account there and can't. And the clarifying aspects take a long time. As well as we need support from our scientific view, because especially points of the circular economy, we like to go more in the exchange with a newer involvement of the. So I think I take a slice of every cake. That would be perfect.
So I guess, Professor Lanza, it's kind of the same for you, isn't it, in terms of the ecosystem play? What do you see? What is your view on that? And what are the current trends you're seeing in the science in terms of methodologies, frameworks we need to drive further actually to enable the transformation?
Yes, I think we are working here on all levels. On the one hand, on a technical side, when I talk about circular economy, it's also a lot about product design, as we heard before. But on the other hand, what's about supply chain? How can we have more, let's say, sustainable supply chain economic way? So it's as you mentioned, an ecosystem not only between research and industry, it's also politics, government. I mean, we need regulation, and when we talk about barriers, we see that it's the whole system: customer, regulation, producer, everything together. And as we have a wonderful round here, I think data or transparency is the basic, the fundamental stuff we need to do our frameworks, our methodology. I would say what we hear at the moment, it's not a research topic anymore. It's more, let's set a standard and let's do it.
So I guess there are some testimonials out there already, like for example, the Gaia X or Catena X project, right? So Mr. Kaltenhoff, I was wondering, maybe you can deep dive a little bit on that.
Okay, I have, let's say, 2 statements. The very first, I want to add something. We are talking about material and we are talking about products. We have to talk about energy as well. And that's the thing, I guess, that shows us that, especially when we are talking about energy, it's sustainability, it's a mental game, because it's very, 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 very complex. When you are a small, medium enterprise and you want to sign a contract for green energy, the first question is, what do you get? Do you get real green energy, or do you get something which was built up on forest in Brazil or something like this? Do you get this from an old water company in Norway or something else? The next thing is when you want to have one of these so-called power purchase agreements. The name itself is complex. And you're a small medium enterprise, you will meet a 300 pages contract, which is not readable for a normal person. So I think the second thing we have to agree on is that we have to democratize the access and the data, so that anybody has access, independent from his position or role in the company and independent from the size of the company. That's a clear statement, because that's what I'm seeing on the market. Small medium enterprise has to deal with EU taxonomy, has to deal with that's called, I guess, ISO 50001, which is just a rule they are asked to reduce energy, they are asked to exchange energy and something like this. And I guess one of the big efforts we have to do is to strengthen the access via standards and via, let's say, role models like Gaia X, Container X, and wherever, and giving people secure access to, let's say, bunches and branches of data they have to use, standardized, for their own analytics. And even the access to analytics has to be democratized, so that anybody is able to do so. The goal is very clear. When we are looking at Germany, 80% of all emissions are coming out of industries. And they will use, I don't know, gigatons of energy. And the question is how to exchange so that they can fulfill not only their cost line, not only their performance line, but also their green line. So my clear statement is access is key, technology is key, and democratization of the data and the access is key. And then technology can have a huge impact on that.
And Dr. Beitinger, do you see this in terms of Italium the same? So,
I'm the only one who is not working here. Yeah, Catena X is an automotive space, and also we are part of this project group. And one thing is that, of course, our Athenium network and our solution was offered or is offered to the Catena X group as one of the solution providers, and we have already demonstrated with the WBCSD the carbon footprint exchange along the complete supply chain. So we have already a successful demonstration that it is possible, so that data can be requested and received, and that at the end this information is verifiable. And that is very important. I mean, the democratization of the access of the data has, of course, always an upside. It is, do we know who is accessing the data? So we have, at the end, of course, we need to, we have to make regulations, and we need to check, do you have the right, who you are? So there's a lot of authenticity rights related to this, if you put them also on a central database. So this is why this exchange of the information is very important, that it will happen peer-to-peer, and that at the end this can be verified with underlying verifiable credentials, which then are showing that the received information is really useful for the broader carbon footprint I'm putting together. And this is exactly that what also Catena X wants, you know, and that we are managing this data information along the supply chain. So with the technology, we are putting in Catena X everything on this so-called EDC connector, which we are comparable and compatible with it. So that is one area where we are definitely where we are connecting this ecosystem with it. And coming back to the general statements, of course, the circular economy is the ultimate target. And at the moment, with our approach, we are focusing on the upstream decarbonization of the supply chain, which needs to be more transparent and which is then a precondition for circularity at the end. Otherwise, you will not have an efficient circularity model. And I stretch this that I would not go with average data because I'm a lean guy and never trust averages and don't base any decisions on averages. You have to identify where are really your drivers of your carbon footprint are. And you have to identify them and then you have exchange them with primary data. That is, otherwise you're not making an actionable impact on it. So coming back to that, of course, we have to connect different ecosystems. Catena X is one. We will do this. We have to exchange this. Catena X is a great initiative where we are providing the solution together with also WBCSD. And circular economy is the next step we are going to. And for circular economy, of course, we need the product passport. We are going into this direction. The product passport is manageable via this administrative shell, which we are proposing also in the ZVEI, where the identity of the product together with the product carbon footprint will be then stored. And we start with a battery passport, by the way. That is where we are going first. And so what I want to say is we need to connect all these things. We need to keep open, and we should not put it on a central infrastructure.
And may I ask, so in terms of the product passport, is this a cradle-to-cradle approach, or does it only fit into cradle-to-gate?
No, that's a cradle-to-cradle approach, because you need, if you want to base your circularity on it, of course, everything has to be stored. The question is only will it be how to explain this? Are we always store the next information to the product passport? So is it a static product passport or is it a dynamic product passport? I think this is something which we have to find out, and this is not yet defined. So is it a static where you just store information and then you store the next one and you aggregate it? Or is it a dynamic where you access to it and you have immediately the actual situation transparent? So in the moment you access it. And this is at the moment not something what is yet defined. But this is out to us to define this. And the first one?
So I guess Jung Heinrich has experienced a lot here in terms of circularity, because we have evaluated together 4 products, and one is standing there right in the corner, the forklift. So I was wondering, Gabriele, when you're listening to that, so there might be a product passport, there might be different solutions here coming up. Again, what would be your wish, actually? I mean, as I have heard, you can now define the requirements together in a centralized approach, because, as we know, it's very tough to do this cradle to cradle. And we have experienced in the project as well that at the first stage it might be a cradle to gate approach, and then further development to really come to a circularity.
Absolutely right. Our product, or our 4 LCAs we done, was the first step to have an overview of our life cycle assessment. We have already products with a battery in there, you know it, and we're also involved by the battery passport at the moment. So therefore we need a lot of data and data's transparency. We mentioned it all together before, so I don't go to this point further. The product passport is another issue because, as you mentioned also, you give it to the market and they have a product passport stamped on the product, and then you use it and then you can reuse it also. And that's a question. At the moment we don't have a definition how we can give the impact of circularity in this product passport. For example, we have a big refurbishment manufacturer. You can bring your old forklift there and get a really new one with a lot less of carbon footprint there. And what you're printing on this forklift? It's a question we have to elaborate together, And it's also a question which data are on the product path available. I think it's a good point.
Cool. So, first of all, thank you, everybody. I would like to close now the roundtable and to open actually the stage to your questions. Are there any questions?
So I was wondering, you were talking about data a lot and talking about the S and the ESG, but turning to the G in the ESG, it's also about ethics, and we can see that in the future, data ethics issue will be potentially an issue. So how do your solutions are providing a solution for that, or how are you preparing for data ethics issues?
Who wants to take the question?
I think.
Very simple. When we are talking about the governance, I just want to show out one thing. And at SAP, that's my kernel. At SAP, we are reporting our efforts in diversity for about 4 years now. And we have a program that's called Save Billion Lives. So we are absolutely committed to the SDGs. And we have software for that, how to measure that, and how to bring especially diversity to our company. Diversity is everything about social governance. That was just one example. Right?
I guess, Jennifer?
Yeah, I thought maybe it would be valuable to give another example, even though this is a great one. For example, when it comes to technology, Google has set standards for AI, like ethical standards, how to organize AI. Basically, that's another way. For example, we work with technology. But there's another aspect. We were very technical here, which I loved. Sustainability, technology is the way forward. But there's one piece I'd also like to mention, and it's the cultural piece. From our understanding, sustainability, sustainable digital transformation will not happen if you don't, educate the people, if you don't take them with you, if you explain and showcase them how data, sustainability connects to each other and how a company wants to lead forward. And from my point of view, this also, connects to the G in the ESG piece very much. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Maybe also some comment, if
Yeah.
I allow. Also, speaking for the company, of course, just for the company, we have our degree network where we have our respecting all the ethical and governmental issues. So diversity, equal payment, forced labor, and we have, of course, also our audits in respect to this, and we have our contractual responsibility with our suppliers. But we all know that this has weaknesses. As deeper you go into far away in the supply chain, then there are weaknesses. And the sharing mechanism we are providing, which we are focusing at the moment on carbon footprint, we have it already in our articles, is usable also for broader ESG information and data. So because we know that this will come. Biodiversity will be the next one, and then equal payment and forced labor will be one. We have to track in the same granularity as we are doing it at the moment on carbon emissions. And as we are going to prepare for this, we have it already in the articles. At the moment, from the company side, of course, we are doing everything to avoid this, that this is not applying to Siemens. But coming back to the question, so this is from the Stadium side, how the solution can apply to this.
So first of all, thank you everybody for your very valuable statements here on this panel. It was really lovely to have you here. And I think we have learned a lot in terms of the whole ESG management. And we have learned, I guess, one more time that we can only do this together. So let's create this ecosystem together from an industry's perspective, as well as the science perspective, as well as the data provider perspective. Thank you everybody for having us, and have a good one.
Thank you. Dankeschön.